Hey, welcome back. I wanted to spend some time talking today about one of the things that I have found to be a major roadblock when I'm starting a business, starting a venture, and it's a source of analysis paralysis, and that's how to create a business name and a logo. And it kind of feels like you don't have a business until you have those things figured out, and so it can be it can be one of those things that just kind of puts up a roadblock as you're trying to get started. And then you just kind of overanalyze and overthink the whole thing, and then you never actually get started. And that's definitely been my experience on a number of ventures where, maybe I wasn't fully committed, or was just afraid of starting, or just really wasn't sure how to get started. And so that very first step became just such a big hindrance and really challenged me to go forward. And I don't actually really think that a business name or a logo are all that important in most cases. In a lot of situations, and it really depends on the type of business you're starting or the type of venture you're starting, but most times those things can be changed later, especially if you change it when you're still in the early days of your business. But of course, there's also major examples of businesses that have changed names and their entire branding once they were established. So if nothing else, I kind of wanted to just say, don't worry too much about it. Definitely don't let it be something that stresses you out so much or becomes a big roadblock and prevents you from going forward. But hopefully we can talk through a few things today that kind of helps you move forward, choosing a business name and getting a logo set up for yourself so that you can move past that step and it doesn't have to be such a big deal. So some mentors that I've worked with or followed say that, a name doesn't really matter much. And I agree with this in some scenarios and some types of businesses, particularly businesses where you are primarily finding clients yourself and you're reaching out to them and then promoting yourself. So you kind of are the advertising. In those situations, you're not really relying on your name or your branding to have people find you. And so in that case, it's not really that important. But in industries where word of mouth and branding are key, of course, that's going to be how people find you and remember you and share, their experience with your company with other people. Then of course your business name is quite crucial in that case, right? And so kind of with that in mind, today I want to share some strategies to craft a compelling business name and logo, but also how to avoid costly mistakes along the way, some of which I have made myself. So let's dive into it. Now, your business name, again, especially in those cases where people are coming to find you through your business name or your marketing, your business name is often the first impression that customers have of you. So with that in mind, a strong name can really make your brand, memorable, but also seem trustworthy. There's definitely names that seem less trustworthy and names that seem more trustworthy. Conversely, a poor name can lead to confusion. People can, maybe don't understand what it means or what your business does, or it's, maybe easily forgotten. So, maybe they come across you and they think, yeah, I want to look more into that. But then by the time they're, pull out their smartphone, they've forgotten what the name is, right? So it's not that memorable. And so I think it's essential to choose a name that, resonates with your target audience, the type of people that are likely to do business with you, but also reflects your brand's identity. And so I've got a few kind of keys or maybe secrets to keep in mind when you are choosing a business name. First, I think it is important to avoid names that restrict your business's future growth. And I've spoken about this before, where you really want to be thinking about your business when it's a lot bigger, right? You never really want to be thinking about it at the size or scale as when you start it, right? You always want to be thinking bigger. And so when you're thinking of a business name, don't just think about what reflects your business now, but what's going to reflect your business in the future. Now, there's a couple really well-known examples here. Now, you might not know that Google actually used to be called Backrub, and it sounds hilarious now and doesn't really make a lot of sense. I understand that it actually was relevant because it had to do with backlinks, but it just sounds like a massage company or something like that, right? So that really didn't make sense. And obviously, that was probably one of the reasons that they ended up moving to the name Google. Another good example of a name that didn't grow well or didn't age well with the company is Jerry and David's Guide to the World Wide Web. Believe it or not, that is what Yahoo used to be called. Obviously, that name is far too long, far too informal, not very memorable, and really just doesn't sound like a big company that Yahoo became, right? So as it scaled, of course, they needed a more memorable, punchier name, and more brandable, so that people could actually remember it and search for it. Another great example is Pepsi Cola. Pepsi used to be called Brad's Drink. Now, Brad's Drink is, again, very informal and really just not representative of a big professional company. So, of course, in time, they rebranded to Pepsi Cola. So the lesson here really is to choose a name that really gives you room to grow. So even if you're starting small, pick something that doesn't box you in later. Now, second thing you want to remember is you want to choose a name that isn't trademarked or copywritten. So there's going to be different ways to do this depending on where you're located, but there's generally government entities that will help you search for this and make sure that it's not trademarked and it's a free use name. Other thing to consider, and this is somewhat similar to point number one, you want to avoid complex spellings or pronunciations. It can be kind of trendy to do this, but it makes it really hard for people to remember your name, remember the correct spelling, and then of course with that search for it online and find you, right? So you really want to avoid names that are hard to remember, hard to pronounce, because they can really hinder that brand recognition that you're searching for. Now, some examples of this that you may know are Zobni. Now, Zobni was spelled Xobni, and so it was smart and somewhat trendy in the sense that it was inbox spelled backwards. So it's a little bit clever, but not intuitive, right? So most people had no idea how to spell it. Eventually, it was acquired by Yahoo, but the name never really became a mainstream brand, probably because of the name confusion. Another one is Scribd, which is spelled Scribd. Now, removing vowels like that, kind of makes it look techie, and that's been a bit of a trend for a little while, but it's also hard to pronounce and it's hard to search for. So a common mistake with that one is people actually search, Scribd, the whole word, or scribed, and then maybe it's hard for them to find it because they're spelling it, maybe correctly, but not the way the brand has made it spelled. Similar is Flickr. Now, we all know Flickr. It feels like maybe that's not a good example because they're quite popular, but that also with dropping the E, Flickr, that creates opportunities for misspelling, which is actually people searching for how it's, the correct word, but the brand is actually spelled differently, right? So you just don't want to create those opportunities for people to easily search for the wrong terms, wrong name, wrong spelling, that kind of thing. Another good example that you might not be familiar with is Quickster. That was actually Netflix's short-lived DVD spin-off brand. Now that's obviously hard to spell. It's unclear what it does. If I didn't have a description, I wouldn't necessarily know what that name means or does or is. I don't know what that company is. And it certainly doesn't align with Netflix's rather clean brand. So, they ended up killing it after public backlash. And of course, DVD is not so much of a thing anymore either. But the point being, clever names, it doesn't always mean clear. If they can't spell your business name, they can't search for you online, they can't recommend you to others, or even remember you, right? So your business name should make it easier to grow, not harder. Fourth thing to consider when creating a business name is be careful about following trends blindly. It can be cool and hip to follow certain name trends for a time period, but if you're thinking long term for your business, and you should be, I don't know why you would start a business if you're thinking only short term. 10, 20 years down the road, you want that name to still be relevant and ultimately timeless, right? You don't want people at that time to look at your name and it's, you look like a 2012 startup, right? You want a name that will continue to be relevant as you grow, as time goes on, that kind of thing. So be careful about following those trends. They sound cool in the moment, but they might not last or stand the test of time. Fifth thing you want to stay away from while you are building a business name is, not considering your audience. Your name should resonate with your target demographic. So make sure that you first identify who is your target demographic, what does your audience look like, and then what kind of names would work for them, right? If you're building a business for, say, an older crowd and you end up going with, trendy names or funky names, then you're basically building a business name that resonates with a completely different target audience than what you're searching for, and vice versa, that kind of thing. So here are some strategies you can implement to build the perfect business name, and these are things that I use every time I consider starting a new business. Start by brainstorming keywords, right? So just list out words that reflect your brand's values, your mission, and your services. I tend to jump straight to AI these days to help me out, but there are tools like Namelix that can really help you spark ideas and generate unique names. Make sure that you keep it simple and memorable. You want to ideally aim for names that are short, easy to spell and pronounce. And while you're coming up with these names, you want to be searching for domain availability. You want to make sure that you're coming up with a name that you're actually going to have a domain that works with that. But I have a huge piece of caution when you're doing that. Never ever type a domain name that you're searching to see if it exists. Never type it into a search bar in your browser directly. When you do that, you will get noticed by bots, and bots are basically searching for domain names that are being typed in, right? And they will then go and buy that domain name so that when you try to go buy it, you have to buy it from them at an inflated price. So don't give them the opportunity to do that. Go into a domain provider such as GoDaddy. When you go to GoDaddy.com, right at the top of the page, there's a search bar for your ideal domain. You type it in there, it won't be seen by bots. GoDaddy will tell you if that domain name exists. Now, GoDaddy is an easy name to remember. I personally do not recommend GoDaddy for any services. In my personal experience, they have departed greatly from what used to be an excellent customer experience, and I no longer get that great customer experience for them, and I haven't for years. And so I would recommend, and I have transitioned to PorkBun, which sounds hilarious, but they're actually outstanding customer service, and their domain names are typically cheaper than other domain providers. So I would register your domain with something like PorkBun. But obviously don't buy a domain name until you've solidified your business name and you're comfortable with that. Another thing you can do as you are coming up with different names and trying to test what works is gather feedback. Run your name ideas by friends or ideally potential customers if you can figure out where they are, and gauge their reception, see how they like it. And other thing you can do, and I mentioned I use AI for business names, is basically I'll go into ChatGPT and I will tell it what my business is. I will come up with some core values that I want the business to represent. I'll give it my ideal customer profile, so a very specific idea of who I'm going after, and I basically create a person, an ideal customer, and I will describe that top to bottom, whether it's age, gender, interests, where they live, problems they're facing, problems that my product or service solves, even sometimes what they like to do on a Saturday night, that kind of thing, because some of those things can be relevant to how you brand and how you promote yourself. So I put that in there, and then I basically asked ChatGPT to give me some relevant words for that industry, for what I'm looking to do. And then you can just kind of go from there. It'll give you a list. You can pare down a few things you like. You can, that'll usually spark some different ideas, and maybe I'll take it a different direction, and just kind of keep an ongoing conversation and direct it based on what you're seeing and what you like from what it's presenting, right? And then once it's done, you should ideally come down to maybe 3 options that you like, and then you can go and test those with people or run it by some other people that will give you some honest feedback. So once you have that, now you have created a name. You've probably bought a domain name now. You've checked that there's no trademarks or any of that stuff. You've checked, however you do, depending on where you are, if there is a company named that already. And ChatGPT actually can be pretty good for that. So sometimes I've noticed that it'll come up with names. And so I ask it to only give me names that are not companies that it sees online already existing, that kind of thing. So utilize AI. It's pretty good for that stuff. So now you have those things done. It's time to build a logo. Again, this is probably something that can wait. I do not think that having a logo is anywhere near as important as having a business name as you're getting started. But it is a natural kind of next step, especially if you are waiting on some other things. Maybe you're waiting on some, a company registration to come through from the government or, whatever. So what I typically do, again, I lean heavily into AI. Before I consider hiring a designer, I like to just kind of get some ideas and concepts in my head. I'm definitely not the graphic designer that the rest of my family is. They're quite talented in that regard. So I use AI, again, in a similar way to kind of give me ideas, relevant sort of imagery and things like that, and kind of pare down from there until there's something that I like, or at least give me a few different ideas, concepts. Maybe not even like a full image, but just some like pieces of an image, in the sense that, okay, maybe the AI is generating round images, and I really like how a round logo looks. Well, that's just something that I can then take forward to a designer. Or maybe there's, a certain thing in there that I like having included, and I can, again, bring that forward to a designer to add in when they build a logo. So basically, I don't use AI to give me a finalized logo. Even if AI spits out something perfect and you're like, that is my logo, I'm stoked, you still want to take that to a professional designer so that they can build it according to graphics standards. The images that are going to come out of AI, you won't be able to blow them up properly. And they won't be set up for printing and things like that on a mass scale. So definitely the final step is you want to get somebody to do that for you. So before I get too far ahead of myself, the AI resources that I typically use, ChatGPT does images now, so I use that from time to time. I used to exclusively use Midjourney, and I still use Midjourney. Midjourney is a very good AI image generator. It just takes a little bit of learning to figure out how to kind of teach it or prompt it correctly to get the types of images you want, or else you get some really weird stuff. And even then, you still might get some really weird stuff. It's AI after all. But I will use those to get some ideas, and then I will go search for a professional graphic designer, typically on Fiverr. I like to use Fiverr. It's very easy to basically vet the people on there. There's a lot of reviews, feedback from previous clients. They generally are showcasing the kind of work that they do, so you can see what their style is and see what you can choose a designer based on a style that resonates with you and what you're looking to have created. And it's very easy to have a conversation with them about your project before you commit. So that's very nice. And of course, you can choose your price more or less by going through the different options out there. But I strongly suggest, if you're creating a real business, have a graphic designer create an actual print ready logo. Now, again, something to consider is, just don't overthink it. As I said before, I don't think that a logo is anywhere near as important as you're starting up as having a business name and registering your business name and all that stuff, making it legal. A logo can definitely come later. So along that train of thought, don't overthink it. A logo can be changed later. It can be changed at any time, really, and you can come up with new branding. It's not the same as changing your business name, and definitely not as hard. So I wouldn't worry about it. You don't have to make it perfect. Just get something out there that makes you comfortable. Not having a logo can be a sense of discomfort for some people, definitely myself included. And so just get something out there that works, and you don't have to worry about it too much. Now, as I said before, you want to be registering your business. Make sure it is official if you haven't done this already, and it is your last step. Make sure it is a step that you do. You want to make sure that you're legal, right? And so if you're operating under a name and it's not legal, then there's an opportunity for somebody else to come in and create your business name, and then it kind of ruins the work that you've done. And perhaps, worst case, by that time you've maybe built some clientele and a bit of a following, people that know your name and your business, and then somebody else actually registers it and makes it official. And then, if depending on how big you are, you could take it to court or fight it and try to show that you existed first. But just avoid all that. Just register your business from the start. When you're happy with the name, just make it official. So there's a few ways you can structure your business. I would suggest that maybe one of the more common ways when a new business owner is just starting is a sole proprietorship. And I'm venturing a guess that it's most common because it's perhaps the easiest, but it is also probably the most costly when it comes to taxes, and the probably most risky. And that's because legally there's kind of no differentiation between you as a person and the business. You're kind of one and the same, legally speaking. And so you file your taxes, your business taxes, as your personal as well. It's all kind of together. And for that reason, and depending on the type of business that you're in, you as a human, as a person, are directly liable for any legal issues that come up with the business. Meaning, let's take an example here. I had a business where I shuttled people from Vancouver to Whistler. Now, there's a lot that can go wrong there. A lot of people are entrusting me to drive them safely up the Sea to Sky corridor, which is a notoriously dangerous road. And I have a lot of people on the bus at one time, and it's year round. So we're driving in summer and winter and all conditions in between. And if something were to happen, there's a good opportunity for somebody to sue me to recover damages, injury, whatever, right? And in all honesty, when I ran that business, I was running it as a sole proprietorship, meaning I, as a person, would be directly liable for all of that stuff. And it means that I would be paying whatever the court said I needed to pay. If you structure your business as a corporation, which can sometimes be called an LLC, limited liability company, that is essentially separating you and the business. That is from a tax perspective, but also a liability perspective. And it's a little bit more complicated to do your taxes and some of your bookkeeping and stuff like that. But there are opportunities for you to pay less taxes under that model. But I think most importantly, it separates you from the liability. So it makes it harder if somebody was to sue you and come after you, to come after your personal assets, your home, your car, that kind of thing. Theoretically, the business assets are the business assets and your personal assets are personal. If I were to recommend one over the other, I would suggest it is probably the best in most cases to incorporate, to build a corporation or an LLC, just simply for separating liability so that you have less of a chance of being taken to the cleaner, so to speak, for your personal assets if the company had some sort of issue, right? That separation is good. There's a little bit more, bookkeeping involved and a bit of a cost for that, but there are, of course, opportunities for you to pay less taxes that way as well. And then it is very scalable. It's a lot easier for you to, add partners and scale the business when it is separate from you, right? And next thing you would want to do is file an actual business license. So in the city that you're in, or the township that you're in, or the province or state, you want to get an official business license so that you are recognized locally as having a business, whether it's online or not. So once you've done that, once you've created a business, you have a business name, you have a logo, you are technically in business. Now, my wise grandfather would say that until you're making money, you don't have a business. And so that would be your next step is, start creating something that you can sell. But legally, technically, at that point, you have a business. So now you're ready to rock. And if you've built a corporation, then you're a little bit protected that way. And so congratulations, you are now a business owner. So hopefully that helps. Feel free to drop a comment below, maybe answer if you have some ways that you've used to brainstorm business names or a logo. Share it with us. Maybe it'll help somebody else or me. If you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing for future content. Stick around for some more real world business tips in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.